Hello, and welcome to episode 53 of the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. This week, it's just two amigos, myself, Mark Mason, and my fellow amigo, Joel Valenzuela. How's it going, Joel?
Cheers.
So where's Brian, Joel?
I don't know. Where's Brian? Was he supposed to be on? Hold on. No, he's not over there.
He's not there? Okay. Okay, folks. Sadly, this week, Brian's not going to be able to join us, but he will be here next Friday. So happy days. And if you watched last Friday's podcast, you would know that Joel wasn't here because he was somewhere else, which we're going to talk about right now. So where were you, Joel?
Yeah, the amigos were dropping like flies. There's gonna be none left. Mark's just going to have a big blow-up doll in his chair instead, standing.
We'll say, who says I don't have that?
Yes, well. Just to clarify, I am wearing pants from the waist down. Don't worry. I can prove it if it's needed. So last weekend, actually Thursday through Sunday, we were at the Voice and Exit conference in Austin, Texas, representing Dash as the premier sponsor and generally kicking butt on that. There's a full write-up in case you're like, well, I had some questions you didn't answer. Full write-up on dashforcenews.com, your number one source for Dash news on the internet. And why would you want to read news about any other coin? Anyway, so it was a very interesting and nice conference. It was, it definitely had a lot of polish to it, right? A lot of these things, even crypto conferences, even the big ICO conferences, just kind of throw stuff together. Oh, we got a venue. We throw up a bunch of tables and then have some speaker slots. And this was very, very curated, very close attention to detail, very much of an art piece of a conference, which is kind of interesting. And we had we had like the throne right in the entrance, like a big wall of like, there weren't any other, definitely the best seat in the house, which is very good. And, it was definitely the perfect venue to promote Dash. It's like one of the best ones I could have imagined as far as turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people go to these Dash events, and you've been doing a fantastic job for your proposal going to these events. But like this was the Voice and Exit Festival, and it actually looked from the photos that I saw in your Twitter, it actually looked really classy. I saw one photo of you, and you're in this like really plush room with a chandelier and stuff. It looked quite fancy. What was that about?
Yeah, it's with a little Dash on the TV in the back. That was during the mastermind dinner, which, hey, sorry Brian, they stole your name. It was for like the VIP type people, and so they had like a little close get together word from sponsors and stuff. It's very very much more of an exclusive type feeling place. And then afterwards, after the dinner, then they had like an open bar and live violin, like the pedal violin, where you do the reverb pedal and then distortion pedal on the violin and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of it was definitely a higher class kind of thing. A little bit hippie too, if you want to go there. Like a little, not just button up suit and tie, but like I heard the word chakra more times during that week than I heard during most of the rest of the last year. And it is what it is. Some people are into that, some people aren't. I'm very bemused and indifferent about that kind of stuff. But it's the whole vibe was the mantra of criticize by creating, meaning so many liberty conferences and so many political conferences are just about fighting for power. And so many libertarian type conferences are so much about how power sucks. Just, it all sucks. And just, it helps to have a little bit of something positive, something where people are like, oh, I'm going to, this human genome, this, and then all the using special applications of cannabis to do that. And then using cryotherapy for this, and just like all these kinds of things to, make the human experience a lot better and create the new world outside of the old world that we're kind of seeing now and sort of resisting against. And so basically, I could not see a more perfect fit than Dash, as it's like that big piece of the backbone behind the kind of world that's trying to be created.
Yeah, it definitely had this kind of creative, artistic vibe from the photos that I've seen, especially in the article that Joel previously mentioned. You should definitely go check that out. But I did notice one thing, Joel, from a lot of these images was kind of the demographic, because it seemed like the majority of the photos where you were tipping people with Dash for the pictures, they all seem to be women. So was you just working your magic? Was you
Seem to be. Appearances can be deceiving. No, just kidding. No, it's because it was a largely 50-50 kind of conference. Which is very weird if you consider, and this is why you have to have a lot more even if you're not into that kind of thing, you have to have a lot more tolerance for the sort of more spiritual and artistic kind of vibe in this kind of thing. There's some people probably like, yeah, why do I have a use for that? But it's that more big tent approach that gets all kinds of people in, trying to live free in whichever way they see fit. And so most libertarian conferences and most cryptocurrency type conferences tend to be, sausage fest. They're the worst, just like nothing but dudes, and then you have a few girls there, and then some of them have like rent-a girls, especially at the ICO conferences. It's not a good look. It's not a very inclusive, complete picture of what humanity is, because behind every single one of these nerds at these nerd conferences is some kind of a wife, a mother, a sister, a girlfriend, or whatever, who just kind of like vicariously hears about crypto, or like gets bought a shiny thing when crypto goes up or whatever, that's like should be involved in this, but is kind of just by osmosis kind of involved and not part of it. And so it helps to have just everyone there, just everyone's kind of there. And yeah, it was not selective. I mean, I always think in the back of my head, try to represent everything, try to make everything look as diverse and inclusive as possible. But honestly, we were way too busy to have anything to do with that. We're way too busy to be like, eeny, meeny, miny, that one, and just go approach someone or whatever. It's just whoever came by. And of course, a lot of this happened to do because we had a very strong team. Of course, Alan Demarest, or Flying Free, as my main point man and helper in organizing this whole thing, who initially scouted out the festival for most of the negotiation with the organizers, as well as Lauren, who is you might know her as the Dash Bunny from way back in the day. Now, show of hands in the room, who remembers Stella Bell? That was a long time ago in Dash's history, when I believe on Twitter now she's known as Crypto Slothicornus, but I won't even comment on that. But at the time, she had a Dash for Newbies proposal going through, and she did an art contest. And the winner of one of these art contests was Lauren for the Dash Bunny, and then just kind of like dropped off the radar for a while, and now she's back. And so being at these conferences, and there's just something about, if you just see like three dudes, there's just something about that just like, oh, that's a dude thing. Dudes feel better at coming up and talking to it. But just having a more inclusive group makes people, especially more like socially conscious people, feel more comfortable in that kind of thing. And then it just like, once you just demonstrate that, just like, for example, Amanda, what do you think she did for the Dash movement? I mean, if the whole Women of Dash thing and all that from before, do you think there would be anything like that if there weren't like an Amanda?
Exactly. Yeah, I think the whole terms of providing balance and approachability is so essential. So I can see why that would have been a great help to you. I want to know a bit more about the event, because there was a lot more to this event than just the Dash booth and you tipping out. There was talks and panels as well. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it was we had a very interesting talk with Ben Swan. Of course, he condensed his whole 45-minute to an hour talk into 15 short minutes for like a punchy thing with a weird futuristic display behind it that made it look like it was from the Fortress of Solitude. It definitely went all out to have a different vibe. And so that of course did very well. And then we had the DAO panel, where it was myself, Danny Sessom, good old crypto show and Dash friend, and then my two my two booth babes, Alan and Lauren, all of us on the panel talking about the DAO and how people got involved, and then getting a lot of that one in particular had a lot of really good feedback because we were talking about all the different things going on, all different projects that just plugged into Dash, that just all the things that what one could call the centralizing elements around Dash just have absolutely no control over, and to be completely fair, no desire to control. Just all the stuff that's just growing out of this system, including, of course, the whole Dash Ventures idea, of course, is a huge hot topic because people are like, everyone's like, ooh, DAO and governance and stuff like that. And then it's like, but this is real now. This is like, it's not just, well, when you're done playing with your toys, like who pays the bills at the end of the month? Who actually interfaces with the real world? You know, where do you, when you unplug from the Matrix, you plug into the Matrix and be like, well, I know Kung Fu, but then when you get out of it, like what's there? Is it real? But it's like seeing that real life parallel is really, really got a lot of people like, oh. And then there was quite a few people who stopped by from a bunch of other projects. The pre-search fellows who are trying to do a decentralized search engine came by, and we had a lot of good talks with them. And then badmirror.tv, of course, good friend of Dash, and that's a very interesting project. If you just go to badmirror.tv, I'm just kidding, don't need to be given a plug, but it just struck me as very interesting as it gathers like local channels and news things from locally geolocated to where you're at, and it's very interesting. And then Factom, the cryptocurrency, or the blockchain project.
I've heard of it, but I don't know the details of it.
Yeah, well, one of their senior devs came by and was talking. We talked a long time and learned a lot of interesting things. And he always gets when you find the people who have a lot of intelligence and knowledge in the space, and then you get them to start asking in-depth questions, hard questions, and then you just start exploring things like, well, how would you deal with this? And how about that? And what about this? And it's like, it's easy. Here's the thing about crypto. Anyone can come up with a pitch. Anyone can just be like, you were the ultimate privacy coin, completely untraceable thanks to this thing that we use. Anyone can just say, oh, transactions in less than a second, blah, 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 or whatever. Anyone can say, this is what we're about and this is how we do it. That's it. What really separates the good projects from the starting out projects is, what do you do for the follow-up question and the other follow-up question? What about 5 questions deep? Are you still holding strong? If you're still holding strong 5 questions deep, maybe you have something good to play with.
Well, one of the things I always find quite fascinating is that after some of the recent events that you've done, you always kind of do like a recap where you reflect on the event and your experiences with people at the event. And you've done articles on how to approach people, first introduce them to Dash, questions, things you should potentially avoid, and things that you can do to make that first introduction to Dash much, much easier. Did your game plan change this time from Libertopia to the Voice and Exit Festival, or did you use the kind of same pitch before, or is it different each time? Is it always unique?
Yeah, there's a little bit of always unique, but what we did change is, first off, we stopped trying to sell t-shirts for $12 because a lot of people are just like, want to do something else with it. A lot of people bought Voice and Exit shirts for Dash. In fact, so did I. Check it out.
Woo, woo.
A lot of people bought those with Dash. In fact, 25 people bought stuff from the Voice and Exit store with Dash. And it just having people, like, you give them a thing and you want them to then spend it in front of you, feels a little weird, like they're trying to get you to like buy something. It feels like it's a little bit artificial. And also just 12 is too much. It's like people want half and half. So we reduced it to 10, still sold a couple, but really didn't push the t-shirts. And then we ended up giving the t-shirts out to people that, on a personal basis. The one thing is, in the past, we've kind of thought, oh, well, what about special ticket holders? We give them free Dash. Or what if we thinking of like categorizing the people that we interact with, but that sucks. What really works is individual. Everything's individual. Someone walks by the booth, they don't have a Dash wallet. You get them Dash wallet, but no Dash in it, then you give them some Dash. If someone does have a Dash wallet and has Dash in it, then you talk to them about other stuff. You don't need to set them up with some extra or give them some extra. It's not like a checkbox. You deal with things individually. So the last day we gave out like 20, 30 shirts, and we didn't just say, hey, by the way, free shirts, everyone come by for a free shirt. We just, people we talked to during the week, hey, you come here. What's your size? Here you go. And then some people were like, oh, can I have some? I'm running this meetup in Sacramento. I want to give these out. And where's the meetup program link again? And we give that to him. And then they're like, oh yeah, woo. They run off there. And just that personal approach really helps. And so the thing is, I have a feeling that there's fewer things at Libertopia to buy with Dash, so it was easier to sell the shirts, but even then it wasn't probably optimal. And a straight up Dash shirt is harder to sell than something cool that someone wants. So, for example, about these things, we'll have a few of these little old school Dash lapel pins, and those would be a much better thing to buy. And having something like that on site to buy. Also, if you don't have a shop set up with like goods that people can look at and a little terminal, people aren't going to be like, hey, so pull out that shirt from the back and then pull out your phone and do the point of sale app on there. That doesn't work as well. You kind of need a tablet or something. The biggest thing I learned, though, that I kind of already knew, but really compared to this is an interesting thing that's very descriptive of the event, is there's a much higher percentage of iPhone users. And unfortunately, that's bad news for Dash, because, you know, I don't want to be too much of a hater, but I might as well be. The iPhone Dash wallet just sucks. Like, there's a lot that works on it. I don't want to say it doesn't, but there's so much that doesn't. Think about this. Hey, set up the Dash wallet. Where do I find it? Just look Dash wallet in the App Store. Okay. And you find it and you download it. And once you open it, that should be it to get started. Unfortunately, at first it says, first screen, create a new wallet or restore old wallet. Well, if you're just downloading the app, you should probably just default to create a new wallet, and then you can go to restore another one later. But just that one step just makes it, all right, what do I do here? All right, you have to hit that one. Next step, it says, or do you want to generate a new recovery C, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I want to start using the wallet, but okay, I have to explain what that is, hit it, and they have to go through that. And then it says, oh, warning, don't show anyone. And they start getting freaked out. They're like, whoa, what is this? What am I doing? No, don't worry about that. Just don't show anyone the next screen. They hit the next screen, has all these words. 5 people screenshotted it. I'm like, oh gosh, you got to start over now. You just screenshotted your, and someone could just like get into your phone and steal your money now. It's like, then you have to do remind me later, and then it makes you go a PIN, and you can't get by without doing a PIN, and then it just puts you to a straight QR code. All right. And then the Android wallet's very simple. You got screen that has your balances, and then you go receive, send. That's it. With this one, it's like the receive screen, and you swipe once, and it's the send screen, which just has like it. You can't enter an address. It just has scan QR code, and then below it, it has like copy from clipboard or something. But it's just, other than that, that's it. How do you get to your balance and your transactions? Well, you have to go to the little drop-down menu and go to settings and then balance. That is complete nonsense. And this whole experience is just so clunky and annoying. And worse, I could not figure out how to get the PETA truck guy who was taking Dash, thankfully, to figure out how to make an invoice, like how to do a request and enter the amount. It was just request. And I had to remember how much he asked for to pay for lunch. And when trying to send it, a couple of people tried to use that to buy shirts at the Voice and Exit store. And they were like, I said, oh no, it's insufficient balance. We can't do it. And because they're trying to send 5 Dash instead of like $5 worth. And then up in the little corner, there's just that little amount, this teeny little, very hard to read D. If you tap on that, it goes whoop to a little $, and then it's different. it's just such a nightmare to use. Everything about that wallet is a massive nightmare. And in fact, I'm talking to another wallet provider about doing a proposal to make a functional, good Dash iPhone wallet so that we don't have to deal with this pain anymore. But anyway, mega rant over. But you don't know these kinds of things. You might create something. Oh, it all works. Everything works. But until you just set up person after person after person, young, old, male, female, whatever. I was sitting in like the dance club area of like Saturday night after the event was over. They had like this big, like kind of dancey thing. I was setting up wallets until 2 a.m. there. And that's like a completely different vibe than just like Friday morning after you check into your conference. Hi, what is this? It's just like some people maybe have a couple pints and be like, I love Dash. Did you ever get your wallet? No, I didn't. All right, here we go. And it's like, what do I do here? Like, it's a completely different experience, and it has to be frictionless. And there's just so much friction there. Just so much friction. Speaking of friction, I see some happy people over there.
Hey, Lauren.
I don't hear happy people.
I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Yes. But Al and Lauren have joined us remotely via vehicle in Southern California, driving around. And so you get to see that as well. So I'll just voice over. I can narrate the drive if you guys want. But, oh, I hear something now.
Is that better?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you good now.
That's nice.
Nice to meet you, Lauren. I'm Mark.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Or should I call you Dash Bunny? I'm not sure.
Dash Bunny's the cartoon. I'm Lauren.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, we were just talking about the Voice and Exit Festival and our personal user experience of setting people up with wallets, and how the experience of setting up a Android Dash wallet is different to the Apple Dash wallet, and how that can be. I
was saying why the iPhone wallet sucks.
pretty much.
I think sucks is a strong word. I didn't mind it as much as Joel did, but yeah, I could see there are a few steps that you have to be careful for in the very beginning.
Supremely triggered.
Yeah.
No, you just have to be careful and let the person know. Kind of get a feel for the person if they're ready to write down their seed key, and then if they're not in the beginning, just get them through it, get them the $20 in Dash, and then describe the seed key afterwards and describe how important it is. You know, but I think it's kind of like a case by case basis. You gotta.
Yeah, it really is. Every individual is different.
Yeah, everyone's special.
People are going to be able to remember doing that, and some people aren't going to be able to. And definitely having pieces of paper handy was a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Lauren, when you're setting people up to tip them with Dash at these events, do you ever encounter any resistance? Are people like, oh no, I don't have enough battery on my phone, or I don't have enough space, or I don't have enough memory on my phone, or are they all quite happy?
Yeah,
those sound
that
like European
happens
problems.
occasionally.
Old tech.
Yes. Some people even just have flip phones and simply don't subscribe to the smartphone technology at all.
Or a Windows phone. Not seen one of those for a while, but I'm sure they're out there.
Or even a BlackBerry.
I haven't seen a BlackBerry.
I actually knew someone who was using a BlackBerry last year until they basically just discontinued the whole thing. He swore by it. He was so happy. He's so sad when that happened.
But to talk about the app, though, I do agree with Joel. I do think it's important to have a universal experience. So there's confluence. Even if people were to make video tutorials, it should be the same user experience, whether it's Android and iOS. I know there are movements now to kind of merge the two, but I don't know the timeline of that. But I know the core team are currently discussing that. So hopefully that should make our lives a bit easier. But Alan, Lauren, how are you finding these events? What have you learned anything new? Like, what's your experience been? You know, what's different from this one to the last one? And are you going to do anything differently for Porkfest or the next event coming up?
Well, Lauren found Libertopia, We actually were talking about Libertopia a couple weeks before I went out to Anarchapulco. And then I saw some flyers at Anarchapulco for that. And then when I got back from Anarchapulco, that's when I contacted Joel. So I kind of knew about Libertopia, and I started Googling stuff for like looking for these events. And I found Voice and Exit, and I had remembered that Jeffrey Tucker talked at Voice and Exit a few years ago. It was just kind of like in the back of my mind, I remembered it. So that's what got me to send Seth a message saying that we might be able to put something together with Dash, and he just jumped on it. So to answer that portion of the question, that's how we found these events.
Joel earlier described pretty well some of the differences between the previous event and this Voice and Exit event. There's definitely was more of a kind of a hippie vibe to it, and a very positive focus on building things. And so people were very curious about, instead of preventing the negatives, they were more curious about building the positives, which, I mean, Dash has great fortes in both areas. So it works out well, but the focus is definitely a little bit different in speaking with the individuals.
So do you guys have any tips that you could share? Because there's always Dash meetups and Dash events happening all around the world all the time. So do you have any like words of wisdom to help other people out when they're actually engaging people learning about Dash for the first time? What's the best way to take them through the ropes?
Find out where they were starting from. Let them talk a little bit first, definitely. Because people come at this from a huge variety of different backgrounds and different tech abilities. And I mean, there's some people who've never heard of a blockchain, and some people who had really, really difficult, intricate questions.
Yeah, there was a lady that had barely heard about like Bitcoin, had like hardly any clue about it. And she kept visiting the booth between speaking engagements, and eventually like I was able to get her 20. But I think all in all, I probably spent a good hour with her like throughout the conference, probably more, hour and a half. She had so many questions, and you know, you have to kind of back up and explain what a blockchain is, and talk about the innovation that Bitcoin brought to the world and how Dash continued that. It was just a lot of those types of conversations. Big stuff, you know, like getting people brought to speed from all sorts of different levels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I did know a few, just a couple people who'd never heard about Bitcoin at all, which is always like, what rock have you been living under? A little bit. But also, I mean, that's almost better because people hear so much dumb stuff. I'm sorry, there's just so much dumb stuff out there that people hear, like, oh, this is like darknet evil money, or like, you know, just all kinds of things that just don't make sense. And you have to you can't say, oh yeah, everything you heard was wrong, because no, everyone trying to sell something is going to tell you that, you know? And it just, like, you can't dispel myths instantly. Someone can't be like, oh, I heard Dash is a scam, which, you know, well, luckily we didn't get any of that there, but whenever you get something like that, you can't just say, no, that's not true. And then they're like, okay, I accept this new reality completely. You have to kind of explain why not, and then over a course of a conversation, start talking about all the stuff that's happening, and then they're like, oh, okay, oh, I'm getting it now. And so,
and in instances like that, you're not always going to convince them right then, there in the moment. You want to, like, a big part of what I was doing is planting seeds. Not everyone grabbed the $20. You know, a few people came by and they were in a hurry. Oh, what is this? What are you guys doing? And you kind of give them a quick little overview. Oh, okay, I'll be back. You know, that sounds really interesting. And then they would come back. But, you know, you're there. You got to keep things positive. That's what I love about it, is how positive it is. You see what's going on in other things, and it's better
Oh, right.
sometimes. And
Right. A little disruption, it seems.
so much better and easier. Yeah, and Ryan, for example, Taylor, like professionalism in the space. Like every time I hear him speak, it's like, you know, this is the kind of stuff we need. More of this, more professionalism, more outreach, more, you know, positive. Like, I mean, what we're doing is positive. It's helping people, you know.
One other thing I would add is definitely to concentrate not on a feeling of trying to sell people on the idea of Dash, but just on trying to educate. And that makes a huge difference in the actual conversation that you have with a person. And it makes them want to learn more and ask more questions and engage more. And instead of like a more salesy approach, which can be easy to slip into because you're so excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really noticed is people respond to honesty very well. And it's good because I hate being dishonest to begin with. It works great for me. But one thing I noticed is when you're willing to give it to someone straight. And so, for example, when I was setting up the iPhone wallet, I do a little bit voice some of the concerns that I voiced just now, even to a random new person, because then it's just not like, oh yeah, everything's great. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, go Dash T, go team. It's like at that point, it's like they feel like they're getting real information. And sometimes people say stuff they're worried about or whatever. And if you kind of voice, you know, obviously which is hard with Dash because so much with Dash is just works. And people are like, oh, what are you worried about? What don't you like? It's like, well, you know, I kind of wish more people were out doing what we're doing because compared to some other coins, Dash has kind of had a little bit more of a sit back and watch kind of community. I think we really need more active stuff out here. So we're kind of come up from behind. It's like, oh, who's talking about a weakness? Okay. Or it's like, well, so like right now it's a little harder to do this. We're working on fixing that, but I really wish that this was easier. Or like, well, long-term scaling, you know, we have a bunch of plans that are going to be great, but really no one's ever quite gone to those massive levels yet. We don't know what challenges we'll face. Or sometimes people are just like, you know what? The volatility really sucks, man. Getting paid like that, having to figure it out. It's a little rough. I won't deny it. A little rough. We make it through, but it's a little rough. Like just saying stuff that's true will make people just think, oh,
Yeah.
This is honesty. This is real. This is a person who's talking real information to me and not a weird canned sales pitchy person.
No, it's true. I had a really long conversation with someone at that mastermind dinner, and he was really interested more on the tech side. He was from that Presearch group.
Oh yeah, a lot of smart people from Presearch.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to wrap around what they're trying to do, but I'll be talking to him probably this weekend or early next week. You know, reach out. But anyway, he was trying to, you know, he just needed to catch up to. He'd heard of Dash, wasn't quite sure what the differences between Dash and other coins were. And I remember at one point I had to stop, and he was just kind of, you know, amazed at each thing that I was talking about. Look, I just want you to know I'm not being hyperbolic. I am not, like, these things are happening and they're innovative. And I was talking about that legal structure that's been put together and Dash Ventures, and he just like, he was flabbergasted, like, this is amazing. Like, I can't wait to get involved. And it was just such a great conversation. But yeah, to continue your point on that truth bit, Dash sells itself. You don't have to be really that crazy about it. Yeah, there's a couple issues that we've been working on, and there's no reason to hide them. You know, we're working on them. Like, but it's such a fantastic, well-balanced ecosystem with the incentivization structure that's just so strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah, and it definitely is. It's a good thing that you guys think that, because that means you have a lot more success when you're having fun. And that whole thing reminded me of someone who is, who kept coming by the table a few times. I think it was like Friday or Saturday. He said something about, hey, yeah, I wanted to just say, man, one thing that bums me out about Dash is just so many people, they just keep talking about evolution. They don't want to do anything until evolution's out. And I don't think that's a big mistake and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of agree with that. And I'm going to write an article tomorrow morning. And so I wrote this op-ed about, coined the term evoluser about people with, I'm not always the most polite guy, but whatever, about people who have this loser mentality towards we can't win until we have our perfect product. It just not really giving Dash credit for being above and beyond just about everything else right now. That you're trying to compete with other coins that do what Dash does, minus governance, minus difficulty adjusting every block, minus instant transactions, minus anonymous transactions, minus all this stuff. And you're just like, nah, we can't. We're too scared to even talk about how great we are until we have this thing that just makes everything perfect. And that kind of
what's
rant.
Interesting about that is that right now in the space, you compare us to just about every other coin, our user experience is pretty great.
Yeah.
Like the user experience, I mean, it's not perfect. Like you mentioned the iPhone app, it's not perfect, but compared to other coins, our user experience is, it's still an A experience compared to the rest. And now we're going to be going for that A plus experience when evolution comes out, but we're still a really strong ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is a lot of times Dash has had too little credit from the rest of the world, and so it's gotten in this habit of kind of doing everything internally. Oh, it's just we know our own people. Anyone who wants to work with Dash should probably be a Dash fanboy, or we don't trust them. And then, we just treasury proposal to fund every cool thing, and just kind of keeping it inside. But then you go outside and talk to people, and you talk about Dash. There's a lot of people who really would like Dash. Some people who kind of would like Dash would like to work in the ecosystem, but aren't like fanboys about it. That Bitcoin has so much innovation around it. Bitcoin itself, obviously innovated a lot in being created, and unfortunately can't really scale, but there's a lot of stuff around it, a lot of businesses, a lot of different approaches, different wallets, but cool stuff that people built for free around Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was the big catalyst behind this whole approach and technology. And Dash can get that too. You just tell people, hey, feel free to build stuff on Dash. You get other people excited in Dash. They start building stuff on Dash. And then before you know it, you just grow with the innovation and everything. And that's why you have some project, I'm gonna refrain from just naming names here. This is we do an after party after each of these things on the Dash Nation Discord. That's dashchat.org. I'm doing the pitch early, Mark. And you get in there, start poking around in the Dash Chat channel, saying, hey, where's the after party? There's up to 10 slots. You go there, and then you can hear me really talk smack, because I'm going to try to be
Here, I have a question about that.
Little polite.
On the after party, is it just microphones and talking, or can people like text and chat too?
People could text and chat as well, but it's all talking, so you'd have to be listening in and just type your answers to what people are talking about.
Okay. I might be able to join for that. I just can't be speaking that loudly at my desk.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, it goes from like around 4:30 or 5 p.m. EST to like whenever. So I don't know what time you're back for work, like 6, maybe like 9 p.m. my time. Yeah, there still might be some people on. I might still be on. So
okay,
that's and that's the benefit of the community. Like people, one of the reasons this podcast tends to be successful amongst the group is because it's very like internal and like, oh, it's all the Dash buddies. Oh yeah, all the stuff that we're all thinking about and we're all talking about and stuff. And the thing is, there's so much more of a world out there too. So while we're doing our thing here, there's just so much else that we go out into the field and talk to other people. And I did spend some time, especially yesterday, listening to a few different interviews and podcasts and stuff with other projects and other founders of other coins and stuff like that. And it's fascinating because there's always something interesting you learn. But the biggest thing I always learn is like, why are these people mentioned in the same sentence as Dash? It's like, wait, is this 2014 or 15? Like, just mad shit talking going on here. I know, but like, there's a lot of people saying, well, this project, that project, blah, blah, blah. And oh, how about this one? And then if you actually talk about where everyone's at, there's just a few that are mature projects. They're there. And I think Dash is more there than anything else. There's no other consumer facing, ready for prime time thing out there.
I heard a couple
you got Bitcoin was kind of
those. You and I were a little bit, and yeah, they talking sound like where Dash was in 2015, 2016.
Yeah, at best, that's you're being very generous.
You know, I think
nice
thing like, you know, we talk about first mover advantage with Bitcoin. Well, in these innovations that have come along that Dash has put out in the ecosystem, the first mover advantage is going to belong to us. So behind when it comes to what's been happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
that's why I think the treasury is so important, because I think it's great that you're going to these events and tipping people, but we're only able to do that from the treasury. So there may be other coins at these conferences, but it's not that. But it's not just about giving away free money, because you can actually engage and talk to people about it first. And let's face it, most people actually coming into the blockchain space that are new to it are naturally quite skeptical. We all were in the beginning, but actually having that conversation saying, look, you know what? Why don't I just download an application and I'll send you $20 now? And then they can have that light bulb moment that we all experienced as well. And we've got the funding to be able to do that. So I agree with Alan, you know, and I said it last week, you know, Bitcoin had the first mover advantage being the first crypto in 2009, but we've got the DAO and the treasury, and we've got the first mover advantage in that. And I really feel at these events, whether it's, you know, sponsorships, tipping people, we've actually got the ability to go that extra mile over other cryptocurrencies because they're limited by their resources. So, you know, I completely agree with all of it. I guess, Lauren, that's probably part of your pitch, right? You talk to people and just say, hey, look, let me send you some and show you how it works, as opposed to who wants free money? Who wants free money? Which is not what it's about, right?
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah, one thing I notice is when you talk about first mover advantage, anyone can copy and paste code, but there is so little that's directly code related in this whole experience, because anyone can do something. You have no idea how it interfaces in the real world. And I forget who I was saying it to, but you can't test something. There is no such thing as testnet. You have to livenet, mainnet, test everything. You can't test something in the laboratory environment and then release it to public. When you release it to market and sell what you think is your final product, that's the only way you actually get to test if your final product works. And so few people are willing to do this. So many people are saying like, oh yeah, our coin works. And then they're not willing to try to get people to use it to find out, no, it doesn't. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you know, other things can just copy this. And then there's been so many mistakes made by Dash and its creator network over the years. And just that cumulative mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake that you build on builds the wisdom of what you can do today. You got a very finely oiled machine after that. And you can't just say, we'll slap on a governance model and then we'll be able to work and scale. It's like, well, no, because you don't know how these things work. The community's not trained to deal with this. Contractors aren't trained to come in and try to work for this amorphous group and know how to deal with things. And there's just so many things. Oh yeah, we did that wrong. Oh, we didn't do an accountability thing there. Oh, we did too much accountability stuff. We did too much bureaucracy, and then that didn't work. And then, oh, this and that, and this affected the price that way and that this. And there's just so much that you have to just go through and pound through, and so much like, oh yeah, we have to instant send is not something you want to do when you're setting up wallets with people, because it'll lock your inputs so you won't be able to send your funds to someone else, and it'll lock their inputs so they won't be able to buy something for like 15 minutes. So you don't want to do that for instant send. So there's a few things you learn that you just think you know, or it's like the amount of people who just thought that every coin that claimed some kind of privacy was just private. Oh, I just thought as you sent it and you couldn't track it. It was just mind-blowing. Everyone, whether or not they admitted that, pretty much assumed that oh yeah, this coin, if I use it, it's anonymous. And it's like, well, like I have some Zcash on my phone. It's like, yeah, but that's completely transparent like Bitcoin. You need to go download the whole command line wallet and do this on a desktop and all that, and just people have no idea, and you got to get out there and use it and actually do this stuff to actually know what you're talking about. Because at one point, people aren't just going to be throwing money at crypto and expecting it to go up through real people using it one day. Eventually, the real people using it one day are going to show up, and they're like, "What the hell is this? I can't. Nah, I'm going back to Venmo or whatever."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When everything's kind of settled, in a few years, when the volatility is kind of settled because our market cap is big enough, then you're going to see people just making decisions on whether to go to PayPal, Venmo, other services based on user experience. That's it. All we will have is user experience. The speculators will be a thing of the past, and it'll be just about the experience of the user. So anyway, it was great. I appreciate you guys having us on. We got to grab a bite and get back on. But hope to do this again.
Yeah, it was wonderful to talk to you guys.
Yeah,
thanks for the old school car approach. It really lends like a real vibe to this whole thing while we were in our pristine little, at least I am, offices.
Well, maybe the next time we're on, we just got into a new house, and we're gonna have an office. But right now we're at our day job and rushing out doing this during our lunch break, and that's just the way it goes from Dash Street team members, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks very much for your tireless support. I'm sure I'll be bumping into you guys more in the field.
Sounds good.
That's
All
great.
right, talk to you guys later.
See you later. Take care. Right, so one thing I encountered on Twitter the other day was I had a message from someone just saying, why don't you guys just contribute to Bitcoin instead of claiming you're better than everyone else? And it didn't grind my gears, but it gave me the opportunity to kind of educate, to say like, look, you actually raise a really valid point, because
good for you,
actually is because that's the actual history of Dash. We actually tried to contribute in 2013. It's how we actually came about, because believe it or not, in 2013, early 2013, even the high people up in Bitcoin, people seemed to believe Bitcoin was anonymous, but through block explorers, everything else, then people learned out, elsewise. So Evan actually tried to contribute and say, hey, look, I've got some ideas based on fungibility, how we can make Bitcoin private. But unfortunately, because there was no governance structure mechanism to be able to reach a consensus, it was a no-go. There was no way to do it. Also, as well, where they're dependent on external third-party funding, it creates a conflict of interest. So actually, through that experience, actually helped shape Dash. So through focusing purely on, at the time, Xcoin, but then Darkcoin, DarkSend, all that sort of stuff, came the Masternode network, Sporks, everything else. So sometimes the free market, following the pursuits of what you want to envision to make life better, has brought so much extra added value that we wouldn't have right now. And the really ironic thing is, the things that prevented Evan from integrating a privacy into Bitcoin, Bitcoin's still plagued by those governance issues today. And now it's 2018. So it's like, fast forward 5 years. So it's crazy when you think about it.
It's like when people say, well, why can't Bitcoin just incorporate all this stuff? I just answer with, why can't Bitcoin send for under $30?
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing, is because a lot of us...
The basic thing doesn't work. And it's not because it never worked. It's because you can't move past that.
Yeah, and it's not that it hurts. It's just that a lot of us were actually early Bitcoin adopters. So the people actually bringing the criticism now are fairly new to the crypto sphere. So they might have been in Bitcoin for a year or two, and now they're feeling quite tribal. And they'll say things. It's like, well, just look, take a step back, look at the history. Look, Dash launched in January 2014, but look what actually the steps that actually got us to that point. And when you actually understand that, it's kind of like saying, oh, we're grateful to Bitcoin for paving the way forward, right? For starting that dialogue, that conversation, that sparked that idea. And we've just gone our own way, but actually taken things that we like, but also pioneered and innovated along the way. And we've brought so much extra added value for doing that. So, I don't actually think Dash gets the respect that it deserves. But I mean, maybe I'm biased.
That's a constant theme around here. But the important thing is this is a free market environment. And when they say Bitcoin can just take the best, well, also everything else can copy from Bitcoin as well. And there's a lot of that going on. And the only way you find out the best thing is you throw it all out there and then you let imperfect ideas fail. You just let good projects fail. Good ones that aren't the best, that aren't high enough, that aren't just, you just let them fail. And then you find out what works. And people make it seem like Bitcoin is the only one that can things from other coins. Well, first off, it seems like Bitcoin can't adopt much of anything from other coins. But also, don't think that Dash isn't watching other people too. Dash has children. And the two that come to mind, and this is my most like olive branchy phrasing of that, but Pivx and Smart Cash both have a lot of elements that Dash did and had some former people who used to be part of the Dash community were frustrated and moved on over there. And there's a few different approaches they're trying that Dash isn't. So Pivx, for example, is trying proof of stake, and they're trying with just everyone can stake and there's no mining, everyone just stakes. And they're also trying encrypted privacy. Other than that, same treasury type model and all that kind of thing. And it's been in the news lately that the few different coins have been slammed hard by 51% attacks and had like 20 to 30 blocks reversed by malicious miners. And that's not exactly possible under proof of stake. It's not the same setup. You would have a different way of doing that. And so you start to wonder if like proof of stake might figure out a better way of doing stuff, even though now most people are skeptical. But now there is a Dash doing proof of stake that now if Dash is crap, this isn't working for us. Now you have another coin that did pretty much the same thing. And then also you have Smart Cash where with a 70% budget treasury and every single smart is a vote. And that is completely different from Dash's angle, but we'll have to see what the merits of that are. I mean, Dash is kind of masternode, like significant stakeholder kind of model. One would hope gets a lot more bigger kind of projects through, a lot more wisdom, you'd think, and sane decisions. But there might be a bunch of stuff that comes out for just the one dash one vote kind of thing, which, by the way, is kind of the point of Dash Boost. So now we get to have a Smart Cash style treasury in Dash while keeping Dash's old model. And then I'm pretty sure Smart Cash is ahead of Dash in terms of it's been doing this for longer. And then you can watch and see what's gone out of there, see what's worked and what hasn't and things like that. And then we can apply that to Dash Boost, right? And there's just so many things that we can keep learning from other, including, even if they're all terrible, you just learn what not to do. No, but absolutely. I'm guessing there's going to be some really cool things we can learn from people who might have even left Dash. I'm not just saying other people horizontally in the space, but down as well. Some people downstream of Dash might have figured out stuff that Dash didn't. And it's all great. It's all out there. It's all cool stuff. It's all stuff to learn from. And yeah, we'll see where this goes. It's a crazy, exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't come into, when Darkcoin came out, I didn't go 100% straight in. I always had Bitcoin because Dash wasn't fully envisioned then. I was only buying it because of, at the time, it was based on privacy and I could see a need in that. But talking about the forks of Dash, I was watching an interview on the crypto show with Danny interviewing Smart Cash, and they were talking about how they obviously adopted our masternode system, right? But also from privacy, they kind of wanted to separate from Dash, and they took the Zcash Z protocol for privacy. Anyway,
yeah,
and it broke. So basically, their privacy has broken. So actually, at the moment, they have no privacy at all. Yeah, and it's good because sometimes within every community, there's always conversation. Should we integrate Lightning Network? What about SegWit? What about this privacy thing? People have this. It's good to have a conversation. And these things have come up before, and now we've kind of seen things play out through people that have forked off us, which kind of, I'm not saying it's their fault from taking things from elsewhere, because I'm sure they have to change the variables to make it work for them. But it's interesting to see how other experiments through similar efforts have played out, and I'm sure there's still a lot more to come. But this is what I'm saying: when Darkwing launched, from Evan being like the founder and creator to what Dash is today, two separate things. I mean, we've got 70 people in the Dash core team now, 60 that are full time. And I saw the recruitment job list the other day. There's about 8 jobs available up at the moment for Dash core, where they're recruiting more people. And I believe there's even more drive to that. Soon we're probably going to be at 100, I would imagine, probably by the end of 2018. So it just shows you that it's a completely different project now, and it's found its own way naturally. And that's a big part of it is due to our governance and consensus that helps us drive that and discover those needs and wants to provide the best utility. Because after all, we're a payments solution. We don't just look at the rivals. We're actually trying to fulfill a need. So
yeah, and that's the one thing that is a big wild card is I've heard so many people say about how their coin is different, what it does. Oh, we're really good. We got the best governance model out there. We got this, we got that. And it's okay, yeah, but for what? Governance for what? Privacy for what? Smart contracts for what? What is the thing? This is a system, because these cryptocurrencies are systems. And what does the system, what is it a perfect system for doing? What is the end goal? And so Bitcoin kind of came up with a little bit of an identity crisis with the whole going from a payment system to a store of value, and kind of splitting on that. And why does it store value better? Well, it wasn't meant to store value. Originally, that wasn't the first. And then where does that leave us? And then you get something like Ethereum that was meant to do smart contracts. And then it just, people all, now everyone else is competing over the smart contract space. Who's the biggest Ethereum killer? Who's going to do this? And it's okay, so you run good smart contracts that do what? What does this run? How does this fit into humanity? You can talk about, privacy, the best privacy. Well, privacy for what? Financial transactions? I mean, that seems to be the implication, but does it work for financial transactions? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to trust? Does it work for all the financial reasons, but then it's super encrypted? And then governance is the best one, because there's so many governance coins that forget that Dash's governance model is to help run a finely tuned payment system. And you can't just be a governance first coin that just our thing is great governance. We have got great governance around the thing that we do. But what is a thing? Well, it's I guess it's a coin. I guess you can send it, but it's governance. Well, okay, well, but what does it do? Are you gonna send good governance to your neighbor in exchange for his whatever? Are you gonna you're gonna run your car on good governance? At some point, you got to figure out what the hell is this thing for, and
absolutely, yeah,
does it work for that?
And just like you're saying that, you learn by doing. There's only some things you can learn by actually doing it in mainnet, in live environments. It hasn't been plain sailing for Dash governance all the way. Look, we've learned from our experiences of doing it, and we've become better and stronger from that. Just from our treasury proposal system, now that we have more accountability, we now have Dashwatch that does report on treasury proposals. There's now escrow as well. Now people are more conscious of the monthly cycles as well. You only learn by doing.
That didn't sound right.
But so yeah, I feel like Dash is becoming stronger and stronger, and we wouldn't have been able to do it. Look, if we didn't take this experiment, this link, there would be no X11 mining algorithm. There would be no sporks. There would be no master nodes. There would be no dark wave gravity. You know, so like this is exactly, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like we're venturing into new turf, but I feel like we're leading the way. And yeah, as I always say, like Dash doesn't get its shine, but that's why I feel it's good, because it's not like we're the underdogs. I just feel like we're the world's best kept secret, and that's why I'm happy that, you know, we're definitely on the right path.
And in ways that
attracting the
people
right
don't
people.
understand. Like Bitcoin's been around for 9 years and been running this whole proof of work, everything, all the mining, all reward goes to mining to run the proof of work system for network security. And it's just like that's kind of what they're doing. And then there's been some recent conversations about, is Bitcoin overpaying for security? But more importantly, is Bitcoin or other coins like that, are they misallocating for security? And this really came with like the 51% attacks that happened this week. There's been there's been 3, I think. It's been
Verge.
This is
Bitcoin
Verge,
Gold.
Bitcoin Gold, and Monacoin. Monacoin suffered from a selfish mining attack where a miner started with 57% of the hash rate, I believe, started to mine blocks one after another and not share with the rest of the network. So create a kind of covert chain. And then when they went public, it was the longest chain, and all the real chain just got erased. And then that was the real chain. And another proof of work attack. And it's like, that stuff's starting to get scary out there. And I know Ryan Taylor tweeted out about Instant Send, about how Instant Send would protect against this kind of thing, which, before I talk too extensively on this, I actually have to research it, because I only have theories of how that would work, but I don't know for sure. However, having a 45-45-10 split, at least with the 45-45, splitting the reward in 2 there, you have the proof of work mining, but you have another network that goes out and has to not just do a second layer on top, but it's another half of the base layer. And I was just rereading Evan's like how to enable on-chain scaling thing to look at the collateralized mining stuff, and he was just talking about the hypothetical merging of mining and masternodes, where you would have masternodes that would grant a mining key to a miner that would then just run the proof of work and stuff like that. And then can you imagine, and then they could revoke a key if there would be any kind of a problem. And so can you imagine like a malicious 51% attack on the Dash network, where then it can just be instantly taken out? Also, what happens when you start having these whole beginnings of chain splits and attacks, and then the much derided reprocess block spork is activated and syncs it all back up, and you kind of avoid this sort of thing? Like this, there's a bunch of like next level under the hood, really cool stuff that is in Dash now, and more that's happening. And that comes from that end user philosophy, if you ask me, because the end user philosophy is, this has to be the payment system of the future. This has to work no matter what. And you can't just be, oh, it works great. Oh, wait, we had a 51% attack and stuff got knocked off. And sorry, the last month of transactions is destroyed. Like, oh my goodness. And so that philosophy of this has to work smooth, this has to be hardened, this has to be perfect, just informs all these back-end developmental decisions about making sure everything works, and it just cannot be attacked, cannot be reversed, cannot have problems. It's just smooth. And no other coin really seems to have that at this point.
I guess that's one good thing about, or perhaps the only one good thing about the Bitmain D3 miners just being scattered everywhere, that the Dash difficulty is through the roof now. So some may see that as a bit of a downside if you're a miner, but in terms of security for the network, that difficulty being so high is actually a really good thing for us as well. And just to back up what Joel was just saying about Ryan Taylor's tweet, for those of you that are perhaps new to Dash watching, the actual instant send and private send and governance functionality is provided by the masternode network as a second tier level. So they're actually providing a service to the network to do that. So those transactions are done through this rather than, you know, the whole mining side of it. So that Dash is very, very strong. And also as well, one thing that people look at negatively, and I actually think is actually a strength of Dash, I've not looked recently, but when I last looked, it was about like 60% of Dash is in master nodes. I believe it must still be around that number. And
somewhere on there.
And in terms of velocity, and I think that's actually a good safety cushion for Dash to have, because it actually shows long-term, I wouldn't say investment, but like long-term vision for the project, because people are actually in it for the long run, right? They believe in the project, and actually to be providing a service, but actually part of the treasury and governance system in shaping the future of Dash. And part, that's the beauty of Dash, is its decentralized nature. And I think a lot of people coming from other cryptocurrencies actually find it more difficult to understand than newcomers coming straight to Dash, that we have this whole system, right? Because they've never seen it before. They're not used to this kind of approach, that what is kind of like a community-led coin is like really decentralized. It's not just dependent on a couple developers and then everyone just follows a couple Twitter accounts just waiting for them to say something. It doesn't work like that with Dash. Like, we really are a community-led coin.
And there's a bunch of reading people don't do. You get all ahead by reading. You really do. That's why we're supposed to learn it in school. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff like, does anyone know the distribution of their favorite coin or the top few coins? Does anyone know how many people own about how much? Does anyone know about the hash rate? How many people are mining on this? Is it, which I was just checking Dashes today because, I check weird stuff at weird times because this is my life. But
is this the rich list?
Ampool is 31% of Dash's hash rate right now. And so that's pretty significant, but it used to be like in the 40s. And so that little dip is probably pretty good. It's a little bit better. It's going down a little bit. Of course, the rich list is the best thing to look at because, it's fun. But then just being able to tell that thing. And then you get some other coins, like hearing about one that's like all into governance and stuff. And, oh yeah, we have the best governance system. Everything works and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, yeah. And then the treasury is all like sent to one location that then gets dispersed. There's a few of those going on actually, which is nuts because it kind of completely removes the point of the treasury, or at least dilutes it, that it's supposed to be decentralized funding. But if you have to go through a centralized entity in order to receive it, then that's not really what it is. And then another one, like, one company kind of owns this and is trying to move away to decentralize the project. It's like, that's not it's not a treasury thing at all. Yeah. Oh, what are you looking at here? Bitinfocharts.com rich list.
Yeah. So this all the data from here is relevant as of 2 days ago. I had a Twitter troll that was talking about, the initial fast mining Dash and the distribution. So I used BitInfo charts, and I took all the data from there, from the rich list, and broke it down from Dash to Litecoin to Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin. And is
this current data, or is this
this is current data as of 2 days ago? So as you can see, I mentioned that the more time in circulation, which should equal higher distribution, right? The more something's out, the more circulated it should get. And you can see just from on the far right hand side, the $10 million mark in terms of rich addresses. There's only 7, $1 million wallets, 136. When you compare them to the other coins, you'll see the distribution of Dash actually is really exceptional. When you look at the age of Dash as well, launching in 2014 compared to Bitcoin in 2009 and Litecoin in 2011, Dash is actually doing fantastic in terms of just how early, it's still fairly a young coin, and the distribution of that is fantastic. So no one can really claim that Dash is owned by like a minority. When you clearly look at this and you look at the rivals, it just tells you everything you need to know. Sometimes the data speaks for itself. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I love about numbers in a transparent but pseudonymous/anonymous blockchain. Is what you end up getting is you get a lot of data that doesn't tell you absolutes, but it should tell you what you're looking for. What you should be looking for is to know how well distributed the network is, how decentralized it is, just in general concepts. And you can definitely get that from data. Like, who knows, like, one Evan could control every single address in Dash, and he could just be sending Dash to a bunch of different little address. Like, yeah, but no, come on.
And,
If you really want to
it's also
understand
the same for any other coin. Like,
yes,
can't prove it.
That's precisely it. But when you see distributions versus time in the game, you get a sense of the ecosystem, and you start saying, like, well, how many proposals are gone through by core? How many aren't? What are the vote ratios on this? Like, oh, they could be voting against their own proposals just to have like an illusion of choice. The illusion. Like, yeah, but no. Like, you can actually look at the votes, look at the voting blocks, look at what gets passed, look at what doesn't get passed, and just kind of figure out what's going on pretty well. And everything, fighting trolls so much. Like, I have to admit, the FUD got to me a little bit in the beginning when the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like, I believed in Dash because I knew the project was pretty good and I knew the people involved were pretty good. But then some people were saying stuff like, well, you can't prove that this is broken, as privacy doesn't work or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, I had to figure out, well, no, it just hasn't been broken yet. And like, that's kind of like the childish answer. But then you get into...
You become stronger though, right? Because when you actually have to reply to these trolls, you come back with data, information. Yeah, it's a fact-finding mission.
Yeah. And then you learn stuff like, well, what is the guarantee? Well, first off, you start to see a few research papers where people tried to break Dash's privacy and were unsuccessful at doing that in a live test case. And then you got a bug bounty program that just pays people for anyone to go in there. And then you see something like, say, the instant send exploit that happened late last year that delayed the release of one of Dash's updates. And you see that, like, oh, there was an exploit and they fixed a few parameters, now it works. And it's like, no one exploited it. Nothing crashed and burned, but you start to have more confidence in the project. We start seeing these things get fixed. And then you start saying, oh, what about centralization of this? And you start looking at the mining, how the mining is working out. You start looking at how the masternodes are distributed. You start looking at how the Dash in general is distributed. You start looking at the geographical distribution. You start looking at all kinds of stuff. And then you start to have a lot more confidence because you're like, oh, yeah, they said, I used to get worried because they said all this kind of stuff that, like, oh, well, how come you don't know the government doesn't own all this stuff? And then you start to look at the stats, you start to feel a lot better. And the best thing that makes you feel a lot better is to look at the other coins. And that's not all of them. There's some very robust, nice projects that are putting in a ton of work into solving problems. And then there's other ones that you're just like, wait, these people are supposed to be on the same level and they're about to explode from problems. It's like, yeah, I think I'm feeling pretty good about Dash. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
We should probably give a shout out to the Dash documentation website and also the developer documentation website, because I feel like that's Strophy's done a fantastic job of that. I know Strophy helped out on the Dash docs. I don't know about the developer documentation side of it, yes, but in terms of our white paper, it reads really well.
Dash docs.github.io. And that's a real cool resource. Just go in there, dig through. It's like for developers and stuff like that. So it's not always that user friendly in terms of, but it is fascinating if you want to start digging through how everything's constructed and you don't just want little executive summaries.
And just to help everyone out, I will add those links to the video description after this podcast is finished. And you can check out yourself. The Dash Wiki is very, very helpful as well for newcomers. There's now a merchant section in there as well to set up WooCommerce and also AnyPay for brick and mortar businesses. So make sure you definitely check that out. Right, Joel, is it that time to wrap up?
Yeah, it's definitely that time.
We kind of did like the outro kind of earlier, but
with the after party.
Yeah,
so it was mentioned before, and I'm going to repeat that because I understand this is like a live show, and some people are like, hey, what's going on? If you had a good time, dashchat.org, take you to Dash Nation Discord. It's a hopping place, and just start poking around asking, hey, anyone heard about the after party? Where's the after party? We got 10 slots open. Once they're filled, they're filled. We come and go over the course of like probably a full work day up until the wee hours of the morning. So if you're in California or someplace like that that has a different time zone, there might still be people up you can join in on. So go get a head up on that.
Absolutely. And particularly if you're a Masternode owner or a community member, or perhaps completely new to Dash, the next hour to 2 hours, I want to talk about proposals. I want to, because there's so many, I want to hear your opinions so you can help me decide how I should vote, because I'm going to be going through them and we can discuss them and go through. And yeah, I'm interested to hear your input as well. So that'll be great.
I definitely want you to vote for Pedro.
I need that t-shirt as well. Yes. So yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, dashchat.org. Thank you for joining us. Episode 53 of the Dashforce Free Amigos podcast. Also, don't forget to check out dashforcenews.com if you're new to the podcast, where you'll find daily Dash news content. We're here every Friday, 3 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. UTC, if you're my side of the pond. And yeah, we'll see you same Dash time, same Dash chat channel next Friday. It's bye from me, and it's bye from Joel.
Rock on.